What's up, everybody? Straw Hats Are Cool here, and we are back again with another video. This is going to be the first market watch of 2024, and we've got a lot to talk about this week. But before we get into today's market watch, as always, I do just want to say thank you so much to everyone who is supporting me in the channel. Last week was a pretty big week in terms of growth for the channel. We are already right around the corner of 1900 subscribers, which is pretty incredible. So really starting to approach that 2000 subscriber mark pretty quickly. So hoping we will reach that milestone here pretty soon in the next couple weeks. That would be pretty exciting. So again, just thank you to everyone who is supporting me, subscribing to the channel. It does mean a lot. Also, if you haven't already, do consider checking out the Discord. There will be a link to that down in the video description. We did a giveaway every week during the month of December, and I've got a couple more giveaways planned here that will be starting here in the next week or so, so do keep your eye out for that. We also just have a good time in there talking about the market and just kind of the game in general, talking about new leaks and reveals and whatnot. So if that sounds like a good time to you, do consider joining the discussion in that Discord. Lastly, if you are looking to pick up any singles on TCG Player, do consider using my affiliate link, which will also be down in the video description. Using that link, a small percentage of your purchase will go towards supporting the channel, and all of that little support does mean a lot and can go a long way in helping me in purchasing new equipment to hopefully increase the quality of my videos in the future. But with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into the market watch, starting off as usual with our manga rares. Not a lot's changed here, so we are going to go through this one pretty quickly. Shanks is still at around that $1,800 mark, so not a lot of sales. There was one that sold earlier today for $1,800. This seems to be the going price for Shanks right now, but again, do be cautious of buying cards of this rarity and price off of TCG Player, as a lot of times when you see these sales that look like they're too good to be true, chances are they probably are, and the seller is trying to scam you, so do just be wary of that. Ace, again, kind of hanging around that $1,000 mark. But the ones that are actually selling and probably legit are these ones closer to $1,300. So again, very expensive card, and same thing as Shanks. Just be wary of these listings that seem like they're a little suspicious, especially when the seller, like this one here, has a 33% positive review. Not looking good for this seller. So avoid listings like this one here. Just be very cautious when the listed price seems like it's too good to be true, because it probably is. Soga King, again, seems to have settled around this $600 mark. Plenty of verified listings here, and just seems to be about the going price for now. For Sabo, this one here is lightly played, but near mint isn't much more. And again, these are from verified sellers or sellers with very positive reviews, so you're probably safe if you want to pick one of these up. But again, just if there's a listing that pops up, say around $400, probably isn't legit, and I'd be wary of that. You can see there are a couple listings here that did sell at $489.12, and that is a little suspiciously cheap in comparison to where some of the others have been at. So those may be some sketchy listings, but if you are the person who purchased those, I do hope that you get them. So moving on to our OP05 manga rares, starting with Kid. Hey, still hanging around $1,000, and I'm still hoping that eventually these ones come down, but with how allocations for product are looking, and just how insane prices for this set in general have been, especially in terms of sealed product, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up sticking around at this price point, just given kind of the direction of where our sealed product stands for OP05. For Law, again, a little more than the Kid, around $1,200. We've got plenty of verified listings here. And again, like I just said with Kid, initially I was of the mindset that these cards would come down in price as we got later into the set and more product got out there. But with how limited these later waves are looking to be, I would not be surprised if these cards maintain their current value. Now, the big talk of the One Piece card game market right now is, of course, the manga Luffy from set 5. And the price on this card continues to blow my mind every week that we do these videos and talk about this card. The first market watch we did for OP05, this card was sitting just under $2,000. And here we are, just about a month following the release of OP05, and this card is over $5,000 at this point. And while no listings have sold at over $5,000, there have been plenty of sales that have sold above $4,000, highest ones being at $4,800. Absolutely absurd, and like I'm not even quite sure what to say, especially given the fact that I believe, and maybe it's changed now, but the Japanese version of this card, I want to say, settled around 1,000. So the fact that the English copy of this is currently 5 times more than that is pretty insane. I don't know what else to say about this card. Hopefully you were lucky enough to pull one. The fact that you've got a card like this, which is just came out and is already, I mean, if you're into the Pokemon market, this rivals some of even like the, you know, base set level Charizards in certain conditions. So like the fact that this is a card you can pull in a booster pack you could find in the store, granted very hard to find a booster pack for OP05 these days, but the point still stands that, you know, a set that's currently in print has a card that you could pull that is, you know, over $5,000 right now. This isn't like the One Ring. There are plenty of this card out there, but the demand for it is just, I guess, absurdly high, and people are really irresponsible with their money. This card seems like it has no signs of letting up in price anytime soon, so I keep saying I don't think it's going to go up anymore, but honestly at this point this card may very well hit $10,000 at some point because it just keeps going up and up in price. As for the Otis Gold Stamp Signature Luffy, this one seems to have settled around $2,000, and there are quite a lot of people who, I don't know, are baffled or even upset by this because there are some pretty strong feelings that this card should be valued more than the manga Luffy. But I don't know, personally I would much rather, well, I don't know if I'd say much rather, but I would prefer to have the manga Luffy over the Oda signed gold stamp. But just a personal preference, and given where the price for the manga is, I do think most people are more in line with me and would prefer to have that manga Luffy over the Oda signature Luffy. I suppose there's also a chance that this card is just way easier to get than the Oda signature Luffy. Really, I think from what I've been able to tell, they're about the same in terms of pull rate. But I don't know, that's just based off of what I'm seeing, and of course the sample size there is pretty small. So yep, that is it for our chase cards, mangas, and the Oda signed. So let's go ahead now and jump into our main sets, which is where the bulk of the discussion will be. So now that we're getting into the main sets, before we really dive in, I want to say I am beginning to grow a little worried for the health of the game, especially in terms of the market. The game is growing at an exceptional rate for a game so new, and the player base, and just especially in terms of tournaments and whatnot, the game is very, very popular, which is great. However, the reason I'm beginning to get a bit worried for the future of the game is because currently, with the growth of the game, the product and production is not meeting the demand. And because of that, especially with older sets like OPO1, which we're going to be talking about here shortly, the price for your third-party market, so getting singles, is absurd right now, which is making the game a lot less accessible to new players. Not so long ago, it was pretty cheap to build a deck. Now, of course, if you're looking to bling out your deck with alt darts or whatever, it's going to be a little more expensive. Alt darts have always been a little more on the pricey side, but if you were looking to build a base rarity deck, it really most of the competitive decks you could build for probably $200 or less. But with the current direction of the game and where prices are not at now, if you want to build a deck like Sakazuki, even base rarity, I mean, you're probably pushing $500, if not more, which is making this game a lot less accessible to new players, which is a real problem because the game is growing at a tremendous rate. More players are getting into it, more people want to collect it, more people want to play it. And that's not to mention the fact that it's extremely hard to get into tournaments. If you want to get into an online tournament these days, you have to be there the second they go up, and there's still a good chance you're not going to get in any of those tournaments. Again, like I said, it's great to see how well the game is doing, but I think Bandai really needs to start trying a little harder to support the demand, rather than trying to release all these new games. I mean, they put a lot of resources into things like Battle Spirits, and that has flopped, and I know they really wanted that one to do well because that is one of their IPs, so obviously it's going to make them more money if it's successful, since they don't owe anyone anything. Like One Piece is not a Bandai owned series, so they don't get all of the money for something like this, whereas with Battle Spirits they would. And they're rebooting Dragon Ball, which is cool, and we've got the new game coming out later this year, Union Arena, which is also cool to see. Not something I will probably ever be picking up, except for maybe there's a specific card I want in my collection, but I think they really need to start trying to put some more of their resources towards fixing the issues there are in One Piece right now, because the market, as you're going to see in this video, is getting out of hand very quickly. But with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into our OPO1 discussion, starting things off with our leader cards. Law still leading the pack at just under $400. We've seen this card sit around this price for a couple weeks now. Same thing with Zoro here as our runner-up. Well, not really our runner-up anymore, but been our runner-up, just under 300. However, we are seeing that both Doflamingo and Luffy now are pushing that $300 as well. Luffy actually exceeding Zoro, and Doflamingo right there rivaling it. Now, for Luffy, I don't think it's because there is any support in particular that is going to be making this card significantly more playable. It's more of a collector's aspect, and just the fact that it's a Luffy leader, it's from set 1, they're hard to get. And like I said, both collecting and playing this game is growing at a pretty exceptional rate. And with Luffy being the protagonist, of course, this is going to be a card that a lot of collectors would like to have in their collection. However, with Doflamingo, on the other hand, I think the reason that this card is seeing a rise in price, and we did see this card, it did see a rise in price not so long ago, where it was rivaling Zoro at that point too, but it did drop down and now has gone back up. And the reason for this, I do believe, is that it was announced this week that for OP07, which is going to be themed around Egghead, there will be support for Warlords, Revolutionary Army, and Supernovas. So with the announcement of Warlord support, I think people are hopeful that that support will be in blue and be able to be played in the mono blue Doflamingo deck. And if that's the case, this leader was a strong leader a couple sets ago, and even still isn't all that bad today. However, with all the removal in the game, it is quite a bit harder to play. So it would definitely need some tools to combat the removal of the format, but definitely still a good leader effect, though it is very specific to the Warlords. So if we get more good support for Warlords that are specifically for cost that can be played off of this effect, could be a pretty powerful boost to this deck's viability. Kaido's about the same spot as before, but we're also seeing that the blue-purple crocodile leader has seen a bit of a buyout, now being $250, which is absurd because this leader was never all that competitively viable and probably isn't going to be. But in EB01 we got some reveals that are targeted at supporting blue purple crocodile, and because of that I do believe that is the reason we are seeing a buyout on this card. Specifically, investors or people who are looking to resell cards bought these out with the hopes that the players who actually want to play this card or have this card in their collection are now going to have to pay and going to be willing to pay an inflated price for this card. So a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Like I said, there are some pretty serious issues with the current market in the game, and I feel like a lot of that is due to the fact that it is almost like immature to not invest in the game at this point, because it is so easy to make money off of it if you do choose to invest in it, which is definitely an issue. You know, the third-party market really should be more for the players and the collectors and the people who actually want the cards, but there are definitely people who don't care about collecting or playing and are purely just investing in the cards with the intention of selling them later at a more inflated price. And I do believe that's exactly what's happened here with the crocodile. And then King and Odin about the same spot as before. Jumping into our sealed product, about the same as it was last week. Like I always say when I mention the sealed product, if you buy sealed product at this price, definitely keep it sealed. Don't crack these boxes with the intentions of getting cards to build a deck or fill your collection. If you're buying sealed product, definitely this is something you should be doing as more of an investment. If you buy at this price, you're hoping that the value of this box is going to go up over time. Starting off with our main set cards now, we've got Sanji here. Now Sanji is of course a pretty good card. It's 2k counter, straw hat type, so it's searchable, but it's not seeing a whole lot of play right now, and from all that I can tell going into OP06, it does not see a whole lot of play in that set either. So I'm not quite sure why this card is at $3.49 right now. It is a set 1 rare, and it's a straw hat, so it's got that going for it. Inevitably, we will get more straw hat support, and this is, in my opinion, one of the best 2k counters just in general. Good typing and has a pretty useful effect in certain matchups. But like I said, as of right now and going into set 6, this card does not really see any play from what I can tell. But hey, here we are. Same dealio with the alternate art. I did mention this one last week as it had hit a bit of a low, if I recall. It was around $38, right around 40. And I did say, it's Sanji, it's a 2k counter, straw hat. Not played a lot right now, but very well could be in the future. And now the card has been bought out. There are only 4 listings left, and your cheapest listing here is at just under $70. But do keep in mind that they are not currently selling at this price. So if you're looking to pick up a couple copies of Sanji, or even just one for your collection, I would hold off for now and wait for some listings to pop up around $45, $50, as that seems to be the price to sell at right now. For Trafalgar Law, this one also saw an increase in price, and I can't remember if I mentioned this one last week or the week before, but it was another card I've mentioned recently because it had hit a low in price, was around $15, and now we're back up at about $24 with shipping there. And I think this is another one that's a result of not only the support that we are seeing a little bit of in EB01, but is also a result of that OP07 announcement that I mentioned a little earlier, where it was stated that we will be getting Supernova support, and presumably that support will be in green, as it does seem we are now trying to support some of the previous archetypes, boosting their power with some new cards. So I would assume that those cards are going to be in green, and if that's the case, Trafalgar Law is a very powerful card that's seen a lot of play, and any support, especially if it is 3 cost or less support with good on play effects, this is definitely a card that's going to see a lot of play in those decks. Same thing with the alternate art, hit its low, and now we're back up to about $100. I want to say last week this card was at $65, but again, it's been bought out. It's at just under $100 now with shipping there. And this one, we actually are seeing some sales at these prices, but it seems like more around $75 is what people are willing to pay, as there has only been one listing at this $100 price point. But I do believe it hit this price today, so who's to say where it is to go moving forward. But the point is, hopefully you grabbed these last week. Like I said, they were getting pretty low, and I was a little surprised with how low they are, considering it's a popular character, a playable card, and it's a set 1 alternate art. So these cards are just getting more and more difficult to get as we get further into the game's life. Next up is Yamato, and this card, I don't know if it had a bit of a buyout or what, but hey, it is $160 now. This card's still not good, it's still not seeing play, and it probably isn't going to see play. This is purely a card you're picking up for your collection if you do choose to pick it up, in my personal opinion. Now, maybe later down the line we'll get some support that somehow makes this more playable. If it's somehow we get some support that makes it immune to all removal for a turn or something, I don't know, maybe it will be okay. But this card is too easily removed in the current format, and for a 5 cost commitment, it's just too much to ask for, in my personal opinion. I think this card's kind of become the meme of my channel, because I rant about this card being bad every time it goes up or down in price, but you know, is what it is. It's definitely a beautiful card. I just finally got my 1 copy for my collection. Was able to trade with a friend, so I didn't have to totally blow all my money to get one, but still a very expensive card. Next up is the regular SR Boa Hancock, and this one has gone up in price. And I will say again, I do believe this is a result of the announcement of OP07 supporting Warlords. It's not confirmed, but there are some rumors and leaks that we are getting a Boa leader in set 7. So we'll have to wait and see if that holds to be true. But Boa, popular character, it's a pretty decent card. It's a set 1 card. And if we get some solid Warlord support, definitely could be a card worth picking up. Same dealio for the alternate art. However, this card's just always been one of the more expensive alternate arts from set 1. And again, we're seeing another increase in price on this one. It has been around $100 for quite some time now. Kind of had some fluctuations recently, but it seems like $165 is the new like price point for this card. Seems to be where it's looking to settle. Maybe more around 150 is where it will settle, based on what I'm seeing with the SP and OP04, which we'll talk about a little later. But definitely expensive card. And again, if we get some good Warlord support, could be a card that ends up going up even more in price. So could be a good investment, but it's a little hard to say right now. We'll have to see what colors the Warlord support is targeted at. Next up, we have got Dracul Mihawk. Again, another Warlord. Depending on the support we get, could be very, very good. The regular art for this card, still, I want to say around $15. Not looking too bad, but this one's seen quite a big fluctuation in price. Though with this one in particular, if you look at the sales, they're not selling at this price. In fact, they're not really even selling at all over $100. People are holding off on this one for the time being. Though I will say currently the cheapest verified listing is at $174. But there's only been one sale today, and that was at $75. And then you've had some sales yesterday that were more around $80. So it does not look like people are willing to pay this current price for the card right now. But hey, maybe you've got some extra copies of this card lying around, or you're just not using them anymore. Could be a good time to sell if you list more, maybe around $100. You might get someone to bite on that and be able to make a little bit of money off that. Now, this one we're getting into some more speculation just based on some decisions that people have made with their card purchases, but I am bringing up the SR Crocodile from set 1 because, like I said, we are seeing some Blurple Croc support in EB01, and with this support we have seen some other cards that we'll get into a little later see some buyouts, and I don't think you should, but because those cards are seeing buyouts, there is a potential that this one does as well. Same thing with the alternate art. We saw one card, I believe, that was specifically kind of looked like it was targeted more at the blue-purple crocodile, as it was kind of more targeted around events in trash and whatnot, which we did see with some cards in set 1, I want to say as well. But you know, this deck's never been all that good. I don't think the card that was revealed is going to help the deck all that much. Maybe we get some new good Brokeworks events, which could help, but you also have to keep in mind that this only works on blue events, so if we get good purple events, this does not affect those at all. But I just thought it was worth bringing up because as we're going to get into, we've seen some buyouts on some weird cards and people are biting on it, so I'm not sure what's going on. Just thought it was worth bringing up. Last card I want to mention for OP01 is Ulti. Card is currently $44. Not too sure why. If you know why this card's gone up, let me know down in the comments below. But as far as I'm aware, this card is not seeing any play and does not look to see any play into the OP06 format, at least from what we can see based on what's doing well in the East right now. But that is it for OP01. Let's jump into OP02. Starting things off with our leaders. Garp, Smoker, Newgate, pretty similar. Magellan, Sanji, Kinemon, Z, about where they have been. However, Ivankov has had a buyout. It is currently sitting at around $90. I'm definitely glad I picked this one up a month or so ago when they were still around 30. Like we're seeing with these leaders over time, they do seem to just go pretty crazy in price, so hopefully this is one you picked up already. We have seen some support for this card in EB01. Seems decent, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make it a competitively viable deck, but certainly will be a fun one to play around with at the very least. but seems like the selling point right now is more around $70. So if you're looking to pick up one of these for your collection or just to play in general, I would hold off for now and try and wait and hopefully find a listing more around $75 would be the hope, I think, right now. Moving on to our sealed product. Again, not a big change for this one either. Not a lot else to say there. Again, if you're buying sealed product, definitely keep it sealed. It's more of an investment if you choose to buy a sealed product with the hopes that it will go up in price later down the road. So, first card I want to talk about is Film Nami. This is an SR. Pretty solid card in any deck that is running Film as the engine. And we are going to soon be getting the green Uta starter deck. And there was recently an event for that starter deck announced where it's kind of like everyone's going to be playing with the starter deck, and you can get a winner card and some new promos that also synergize with the deck as well, which is pretty cool to see. But with that deck getting closer to release, this is a card that could see an increase in price because for some reason Bandai decided they wanted to reprint like every film card in that starter deck except for the one that actually mattered, being this Nami. I don't know why we did that. Like I said, we're growing, this game's growing at an exceptional rate. Why not just print this card in that starter deck? It's a pretty decent leader. The deck's pretty decent for the remainder of the OP5 format once it releases. Why are we denying players the opportunity to pick up cards like this at a reasonable price? No reason for it. This set is more or less out of print. This third-party market shouldn't be affecting Bandai at all. I don't know why we're intentionally making these cards harder to pick up for players. It makes no sense at all. With the alternate art, we already have seen an increase in price, had a bit of a buyout. Currently, the cheapest listing is $90. There are 20 listings, which is a pretty healthy amount of listings, but the card is not looking to be selling at this price. We did have one sale at $70, but the majority of the sales for this card are around that $50 price point. So if you're looking to pick up a couple copies of this card, I would hold off for now. I do think that some listings closer to probably somewhere between $50 and $70, maybe around $60, are going to start popping up here in the next day or so. Same dealio with Luffy. This one hasn't gone up all that much in price, but certainly could as we get closer to the release of that starter deck 11. Now, I'm going to talk about all of these Impel Down cards together. Again, we're getting Impel Down support in EBO1, as I mentioned. Some support specifically looking to help the Ivankov leader, but we are also getting the blue-purple Hannibal leader in EBO1 as well. And these are cards that you could play in that deck, depending on, what support we get. We still haven't seen every card from that set yet. But all of these Impel Down blue cards have gone up quite a bit, all around $30 now, with Buggy being a little more than that. I do believe with this Luffy, it actually did go up in price last week and was something I missed on my market watch last week, so I do apologize for that. But all these Impel Down cards have gone up quite a bit in price. The Buggy in particular, I do think has gone up quite a bit. It was around 25, I want to say. Looks more like around 20 maybe. Now we're at $46. So pretty big price increase there. While the regular arts for Ivankov and Luffy haven't gone up a ton, they have gone up. And if we get more support announced in EBO1, and if that support proves to be relevant and these cards and decks start seeing more success, these are definitely cards that could go up a lot more. I mean, just look at SRs like Borsolino from set 2. It's very playable. That's a $40 SR now. I'm not saying that this Ivankov or the Luffy are ever going to get to that price point. But if the deck does see success, definitely expect increases in the prices of these cards. So if you don't have one or want to take a gamble on these cards being relevant and seeing competitive success, definitely cards you could consider investing in. I don't know what to say about this one. Box Topper Boa Hancock is currently at $30. Granted, they're not selling at this price, but we did have a couple listings sell at $20 here. Only 5 listings left, so it was bought out. It is a Warlord. We're allegedly getting Warlord support in set 7. And it is Impel Down. We're getting Impel Down support in EB01. So I guess people are hoping that somehow this card will be good or relevant. I think you're crazy if you're of that mindset, but maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong for anyone who's choosing to buy the cards at this price, but I definitely think this is a card you want to avoid right now. And if you have this card or extra copies of this card, definitely try and get rid of those now, in my personal opinion, as I don't think these cards are going to maintain the value they have right now. But again, that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. If there's something I missed or some card that is going to make this more relevant, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. And we've got Little Sadie as well. This card was also bought out. It's now at $60. And I think of the cards that are bought out, this one has the highest probability of seeing some form of competitive success, as it is a 2K counter of the Impel Down typing. So searchable off of Hannibal, and we do have the blue-purple Hannibal leader coming up. So this is probably going to be a 2K that sees play in that deck. We've also got a new Jailer Beast, which definitely helps this card as well. So I definitely think this one is the most likely to see success. Definitely still a little too soon to tell, but definitely glad that I picked up my copies of these 2-3 weeks ago when they were still around, I want to say $18-20 is what I paid for each copy. But yeah, they are selling at this price, so if you were looking to pick up your Little Sadie, might be a little too late, and you're gonna have to pay somewhere more in the realm of $60 for this card right now. And last card I'm mentioning, I mentioned this one quite a bit, but it's Magellan. And honestly, I'm a little confused with how low this price is when we've got a card like Little Sadie at $60. This card is seeing quite a lot of play right now in Bluefy decks, and very well could see a lot of play in these Impel Down decks that we've been talking about, as we're seeing support for that archetype in EB01. This card has already proven that it's good. It's already seeing play and success. Why isn't it more in line with Little Sadie? I don't know, but I guess this is more universal. It's a 2K counter, and every deck needs to run some number of 2K counters, and the Magellan card is more, you know, the success of this card is more based on how well it synergizes with the other cards in the leader. So I guess there's that, but still a little surprising to me that this one is almost half the price of the Little Sadie. But that is it for OPO2. Let's go ahead and jump into OPO3. Quite a lot I wanted to talk about in OPO3, but we should be able to get through it relatively quickly. Starting off with our leaders, not a lot of change, but Nami is now also $200, rivaling Katakuri. Other than that, not a lot of change in terms of prices for a leader. Ace is getting expensive, but he's been kind of up around that $90 price point, if I recall, so not a big change here. I do think Nami's gone up quite a bit from last week, potentially, though. I want to say it was more 160-ish maybe, but I'm not too sure. Definitely seems like it's gone up a little bit, though. So, yeah, that's it for our leaders. Let's jump into our sealed. Again, not a huge week for sealed product. Again, don't buy these and open them up. buy these and keep them sealed. And honestly, if there's a set you're looking to buy and keep sealed at this point, this might be one of the better ones to do so, as it's still not absurdly overpriced. It's actually less than sealed OP05 right now, which is pretty crazy. And I think that the overall set value for this one's going up pretty consistently, with a lot of those yellow cards in particular continuing to see success into future sets. So starting off again this week, we've got Usopp. I do believe we mentioned this one last week, and what I'd said last week was that you should probably avoid this card, and if we do, it would go back down in price, was kind of where I was at with it. However, people are buying at this price, so at this point I don't expect the price of this one to go back down. So Usopp is now looking to be about a $15 card, if not a little more, as we are seeing the cheapest listing right now at $17, going up from there. Though if we look at the sales, generally we're more in that $15-16 price range, so might see some cheaper listings pop up there, here and there, but I don't think it's going to go down much from where it's at right now. Now this is a bit of a weird one, the Isho, SR, and alternate art, but I wanted to bring them up because they're, in terms of alternate art and SR, they are definitely on the cheaper side, and Black has seen a lot of success in recent sets and sees a lot of success in future sets. And I do believe they just announced a new starter deck for Black as well, just themed around the 3-day, 2-year straw hats and whatnot. And this card's cheap, and while it doesn't see play right now, I still think it's a pretty good card. It's got the Navy typing, so it's searchable. It's got a solid on-play effect, and it's also got a pretty good effect on your turn as well if you're able to untap with it. So I think this is a card that could very well see play in the future if we get the right support for it. Maybe a new black purple leader so that we can ramp into this a little more consistently might be good, but I don't know. I just feel like this card, despite the fact that it's not seeing play right now, may be a little bit undervalued, but I did think it was worth bringing up. We've got Pudding alternate art, and this one has gone up in price. I want to say for about it since the set, well, when the set released, this card was a lot higher, but once things for set 3 settled down, this card has sat around $40. I want to say it was at $40 for the majority of the set 4 format, and then going into the OP05 format, but it is going up in price now. It's currently at $54, and it's got that 99% shipping as well. Like I've been saying, yellow still sees success going into set 6, both Katakuri and NL being pretty viable decks. This is not a card that sees a lot of play in NL in particular, but it does in Katakuri, and with that deck still seeing success in the set 6, I'm not surprised that we're seeing this one go up in price a little bit. You know, it's been 6 months now since the release of set 3, so that set is getting older, and as a result those cards are getting harder to obtain, so not surprised to see a price increase on this one. One of our favorite cards to mention here on the channel is Charlotte Katakuri, and while there haven't been any major changes in this one's price, I am just going to mention again real quick that these are cards that are seeing a ton of play and success in the current format, played anywhere from 2 to 4 copies, both in Katakuri and NL. Definitely usually a 3 to 4 of in decks like NL. And given the fact that that deck still sees a lot of success in the OP06 format based on what we're seeing in the E's, this is definitely a card I think is going to maintain its value, if not continue to go up over time, as the demand for the game increases and more new players come to the game. If the price of cards doesn't scare them away, you know, with yellow still being a good deck, this is a card that a lot of players are probably going to want to get their hands on, because it's still, you know, it's a deck you could pick up now and still play into OP06, which I think for a lot of players would make this a more worthwhile investment, since it's a deck that can play now and into next set with very few additions from what's being provided next set. So I definitely think these are cards that are going to hold their value and could definitely go up in the coming months as well. Now, you'll probably notice that generally speaking, I try to talk about cards in order of color, but for these wanted cards, I did want to talk about all of them together. So Doflamingo right now, this one was bought out a couple months ago, but it did go back down in price. However, it does seem that it was bought out again. You've got one listing here from a seller with only 5 sales and 0% positive feedback. Probably just because they're new. Nothing against the seller. I'd have to go and look and specifically see, what reviews they have, if any. But cheapest verified listings at $80, which for this card is a little absurd in my opinion. But main reason I'm bringing this is up, we'll get into a minute. So Doflamingo $65, but really verified listing, we're looking at $80. Okay, so Doflamingo $80. We've got Kid, who is seeing play and success in OP06, specifically in Yamato decks. This listing is $70 and not a verified seller, but 65 sales and positive feedback. And then our verified listing is also $70, which is cheaper than the Doflamingo, who, as far as I'm aware, is not seeing any play outside of maybe some niche Corazon decks, Rosinante. Those decks aren't seeing competitive success though, like the Yamato deck that plays this Kid. And then we've got Kaido, who the cheapest verified listing is $72. And this card is currently seeing competitive play and success in Pluffy decks. And then of course you've got Luffy, who is Luffy, and he's the most expensive with your cheapest verified near mint being at $155. But I'm pretty confused because why is the card that is currently seeing competitive success the same or less expensive than the card that sees no play or success? It doesn't make any sense. Like, the cheapest verified Doflamingo is more than the cheapest verified Kid and Kaido. And these are cards that are either seeing play and success or anticipated to see play and success based on what we're seeing from the format over in the East. Makes no sense. The only thing that makes sense here is that Luffy's the most expensive because Luffy. But that's it for OP03. Let's dive into OP04. Starting things off with our leaders. Only serious change here is on the purple yellow crocodile. Now, as I mentioned in set 1, we are seeing some Brokework support, and there was a purple card that was revealed for EB01. I believe it was Miss Wednesday, which is definitely going to be a card that will be good for the purple yellow crocodile deck. Do I think that it is going to make the purple yellow crocodile deck a top tier threat? I do not. I absolutely do not think this is going to become a tier 1 deck just because of that card alone. I think this deck needs a lot in order to see high level competitive success, but I definitely could be wrong about that. But like I said, when I mentioned the SR crocodile in set 1, this is kind of what I'm talking about with the copium and the people just buying things out for the sake of buying them out. I think this is one of the ones that was hit hard by that, and there are a couple others that we'll get into here in a minute. Again, sealed product. This one basically unchanged from last week. Again, this one and set 3 I think are probably your best pickups in terms of sealed product right now, just because they're not totally outrageous in price, and I definitely think, given the course of events that we've seen with past sets, that these are going to be sets that do see increase in value over time, especially with the fact that a lot of set 4 cards are starting to see a lot more play and success in future formats. Starting things off, we've got our SP Law, very similar to the set 1 Law. This card has seen a bit of a buyout, a pretty significant increase in price as a result of the announcement of OPO7, which has mentioned support for supernovas. Boa Hancock, same thing. We got the mention of OPO7 with Warlord support. This is a Warlord. And so this is a card that's gone up in price. Same thing we saw with the Boa in set 1. We've got Crocodile, the SR, and while the SR in particular has not gone up a whole lot in price, from what we can tell here, it is going up in price as a result of support being revealed in EPO1. However, the alternate art, on the other hand, has seen a significant increase in price, going from around $8 all the way up to $24. That's a 3 times increase in price, which is pretty absurd. This card is not worth this price. Don't buy this card right now. Maybe the deck will see play and success as a result of the support, which would be great, but personally I don't think that support that was mentioned or revealed in EBO1 is going to be enough to push this deck into tier 1 or even tier 2 status, if I'm being honest with you. But I hope I'm wrong. I would like to see older leaders like Crocodile start seeing more play and success. Same thing with Missile Sunday. We got Brokework support. It's seeing slight increase in price. Definitely not as much as the Crocodile. This one only about a couple dollars. You can see it did come down from where it was at, but after the reveal of that card, it is seeing an increase in price. So again, this one wasn't significant, but there was an increase in price here. Really, we're looking at about $30. So definitely an increase there. So again, just be kind of wary if you're looking to pick up either of these cards. I think they'll come down in price. Sabo settled down a little bit from last week. We did see it did get a bit of a buyout last week, as it's seeing a lot of play in the set 6 format from what we can tell. But the alternate art has settled around $50, which is what I was expecting. So I think this is probably where it's going to stay for a little while now. And your regular SR being about $11, $12 right now. Now I will say this card is played as a 4 of in, I want to say, Moria, Black Yellow Luffy, and in most Perona decks from what I can tell. So it sees a whole lot of play next set, and it's still a 2 of in Sakazuki decks. So it's definitely one that could go up more, especially if those decks continue to see success. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, Yamato is also seeing increases in price right now, and this is likely a result of the fact that NL is seeing success in the current format, and it's also seeing a lot of success in the OPO6 format, as I've mentioned several times now throughout the video. So Yamato is a good card that's still seeing a lot of play going in the next set. Our alternate art has seen a rather significant increase in price, about a 50% increase in price here. Was about $60 last week, and now we're looking at $90. It's Yamato, so waifu tax and all that. Also very competitive playable card in a deck that sees a lot of success in the current and future formats. So not surprising to see this one go up in price. That's the reason I've been saying I think this card's been a good buy. I wouldn't say this is a good buy anymore, but this is kind of more where I expected the price to be, just given the growth of the game and how successful these NL decks are looking to be. But that is it for OP04, so let's jump now into the last main set, OP05. Starting off with our leaders, no serious changes here for this set, though Corazon has gone up a little bit in price, and we could see increases in price on Sabo and Bello Betty. It was specifically announced that the Dragon leader on the distributor website from set 7 is going to be red, so definitely means we are probably getting more Revolutionary Army support for red, and with both of these leaders having red as one of their colors, that support could also help these leaders as well, which could boost their viability in future sets. So once we start seeing reveals for OP07, specifically Revolutionary Army type cards, there is a chance that these ones are going to go up in price. So if you don't already have these two in your collection, these are definitely ones I would consider picking up now. They could be good investments, and they could be playable cards in the future sets. So starting off with sealed product, Awakening of a New Era, absolutely absurd, still blowing my mind. I can't believe that sealed product for a set that came out a month ago is $250, but that just goes to show you just how popular the card game is right now and how high the demand for this set especially was. Not all that surprising considering there were not one but 4 chase cards in this set with the 3 mangas and the Oda signed Luffy, but still pretty baffling that a set this new is already at $250. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is part of the reason I am so worried for the game right now, because this is not healthy for the game. A new set like this should be accessible for new players. People should be able to buy packs, build their decks. You know, for a lot of players, one of the most fun parts about card games is opening the packs. But for this game right now, it's almost impossible to do that, especially if you're a new player, which just really sucks in my opinion. And I hope that Bandai starts trying a little harder to address this issue. But we already received an announcement that allocations for set 6 and 7 are expected to be cut by 40%, which leaves me very worried for the future of this game, and I really hope that Bandai addresses it, because this game has a great community surrounding it. I've played a lot of card games, and really, at least in my area and the events I've gone to, there's really an incredible community for this game. You know, one of the nicest and most caring communities I've had the opportunity to be a part of, and I'd really hate to see this game, you know, see a short life just due to a lack of the fact that Bandai can't figure out how to fix this issue and is more concerned with pushing out new games rather than supporting the ones that are already seeing success and need, you know, help. But I don't know. Hopefully Bandai recognizes this issue and does something about it. But given how Bandai has handled issues like this in the past, it definitely does leave me just a little bit worried. But starting off with, I've got all the SPs pulled up right now because they are of, you know, Kaido and Lucci, not a lot of changes, but, you know, Yamato and Nami have seen pretty big changes. Nami was about 200 last week, now it's 230. Yamato, I want to say, was more around 100 last week. Could be wrong about that though, and now it's at 150. So your two waifus here, pretty expensive. Uta also pretty expensive, as well as Eno. These 3 cards don't see a whole lot of play right now. Eno seeing play, so that could be part of the reason why this one's as high as it is. In terms of aesthetics though, I think that NL fits this art style the best, so I'm a big fan of the SP NL from this set. But I will say, if there's one that's gonna go down in price, I think it's NL. I think going into set 6, this one could drop down in price purely due to the fact that this card does not see hardly any play in the successful NL decks from what I can tell. I follow the decks that are doing well pretty religiously, if you will. So I'm fairly confident that this one will go down at least a little bit in price going into OP06, because this card sees no play at all. I've looked at a lot of NL disc lists that are topping and winning flagships and whatnot, but this card is absent from most, if not all, of those lists that I've looked at. So jumping into the main set now, as I mentioned a little earlier with Sabo and Bello Betty, we are getting a new red dragon leader in OP07. So your Bello Betty, your Koala, and potentially even Sabo could be much more playable going into the OP07 format. We are already seeing an increase in price on the Sabo, almost doubled in price. We're seeing slight increase on Koala. Only 16 listings left though, so this one is approaching buyout status. And same thing with Bello Betty. This one's gone up a little bit and is also approaching the buyout status. So again, it's too soon to tell if these cards will be relevant, but once we start getting leaks for set 7 for Revolutionary Army, it's going to be a little easier for us to tell, you know, how good the support is and whether or not it's relevant. But really, we're not going to be able to truly judge that until the set releases and we're able to really see what decks are doing well in the OP07 format. And we've got quite a bit of time before we reach that point. I believe that set 7 is going to release sometime in February in the East, so got probably right around 2 months until we see, you know, what's kind of doing well in that format. But could be a good opportunity to pick up your Koala and Sabo SRs just in the event that the deck and support is good. So I think Koala in particular, being a Revolutionary Army 2K with a very solid effect for any red deck that can utilize it, definitely a pretty good card and one that you'll definitely want for a Revolutionary Army deck if they end up being viable. So kind of same thing with Sabo. I think this one needs some more specific support to see good level of success, but definitely not a bad card. And since we are getting more Revolutionary Army support, and just given how cheap this card is right now, you know, go ahead and pick up a playset of this card. Could be good in the future. Next up, we've got this is the Oda Art Luffy. This is not the signed one. This is just the regular one. You get 2 of these in every case, so about 2 in every 12 boxes, and guaranteed if you're opening a sealed case. They're going up in price a little bit. After release, they were right around, you know, the official release, they were around $20, but they are pushing $30 now. Not totally surprised by this. It's Luffy. It's a good card. And it doesn't, you know, it's got the wanted art. But aside from that, you know, in my opinion, this is the best art for the card. So not surprised to see this one go up. It's a Straw Hat type. It's Supernova, Rush. It's playable. It's a good card, good art. Not surprised to see it go up in price here just a little bit. Alti it's slowly going up in price. And again, what I just want to say about this card is that it's one that could eventually explode in price given the right deck for it. It works in any multicolored blue deck, and it's just a consistency piece. You look at the top 3, you add 1 to your hand, the rest go to the top or bottom. So if you like the other 2 cards, you can put them back on top and draw them in your next couple turns. Or you can grab the 1 card that's the most relevant and push the rest on the bottom so you can dig a little deeper for the cards that you actually need to close out the game. So definitely a very powerful effect, and one that I think could still be good into future sets if we get the right support or leader for it. Kaido is starting to settle down in price now. We did see this one got a little bit of a buyout as well. I want to say it jumped up to nearly $60 at one point. We could check through the sales real quick and try and figure out where it peaked, if any sales happened. We did see here on the 31st there was a sale there at $60, but only one. Since then, they've settled back down just under $40 now, which honestly I think is a more appropriate price for this card. Definitely a good card and one that can and has seen success in Sakazuki decks. Pretty good into the mirror match for Sakazuki, so would not be surprised if this card ends up seeing some tops in Nats. So definitely look forward to seeing what does well there. Looking forward to playing in the event myself. Next up, we have got Eustace Captain Kidd. Now, I want to talk about these two cards because it's a very good card. Eustace is a very good card in the purple Luffy decks right now. And I may have mentioned this last week, but I want to mention it again. Is that while these decks are doing well right now, purple, unfortunately, next set goes back to like F tier status where no purple decks are really seeing any play or success, unfortunately. So while this card is good this set, I think this one's going to tank in price going into set 6 because purple is more or less a dead deck in set 6, which is pretty unfortunate. Not to say that this isn't a good card. I think this card is phenomenal, and when purple eventually gets more good support, definitely think this is going to be a good card in those decks. But for the time being, purple dies off from what we can tell in set 6. Maybe someone will cook up something spicy and this card will see more success. But if you're looking to pick up copies of the alternate art in particular, I would wait until we get closer to set 6, as that's when I expect the price on this card to start to dip a little bit. You've got your secret rare alternate art Gear 5 Luffy. It's at $55 thereabout right now, so it's starting to come down a little bit, and honestly it makes sense as it is Gear 5 Luffy. Awesome art, love this card, but unfortunately the only deck that this really sees any play in is red purple Luffy. And as much as I love that deck, unfortunately, it's not seeing a ton of success. It's definitely seeing some tops, but not one of the more formidable of the... It's not one of the most formidable decks in the current format. And so for that reason, I'm not surprised that this one's starting to dip in price a little bit. Though, if this one gets much lower, it's one I definitely consider picking up. There are a lot of listings right now, but, it's Gear 5 Luffy. From a collector's standpoint, this is a pretty nice card to have, and I think this card will get a little lower, and that's going to be when we want to pick these cards up, because I do think that these are going to be ones that maintain value and eventually go up again in the future, just because it's Gear 5 Luffy. Alright, let's talk about the black stuff. So we've got Lucci SR and alternate art, Rebecca SR and alternate art. Now I'm going to talk about these cards together because really right now, these are both 4-ofs in most Sakazuki decks. See a lot of play and success in the current format and the next format as well. So here's what I gotta say about Lucci. Lucci is an incredible card in the current format, and from what we can tell, an incredible card into the next format. My prediction is that both the SR and the alternate art are going to see pretty significant increases in price going into set 6. And the reason I think that is because it's a 4-of and not only Sakazuki, but also Gecko Moria as well. Lucci is played as 4-of in both of those decks, so there are 2 top tier decks in the next format that play this card at 4. Like we saw with the cards in set 4, like Sanji, Capone, Yamato, they were pretty cheap when set 4 was the most recent set. But once we got a new set, they went up quite a lot in price. Like your SR Sanji went from about $5 up to 10. Yamato seeing increases in price now, and I would not be surprised if Rob Lucci follows that trend and does something similar, especially with the regular SR. I definitely think this one's going to go up in price going into set 6. Now, with Rebecca, on the other hand, I think the regular SR is going to see an increase in price going into set 6. You know, for all the same reasons I mentioned with Lucci. It's played in Gecko Moria and in Sakazuki still. However, I think this one doesn't see as much play in Gecko Moria, still more of a Sakazuki card, but still sees a lot of play. I think the alternate art will come down, which might sound surprising, but you have to remember that in set 6 we also get the SP art for this card. And let's not kid around, the art for the SP is way better than the art for this alternate art. So I expect this one will kind of maintain its current value, if not drop down just a little bit, maybe closer to $50. And the SP is going to be absurdly expensive, if I had to guess. Very playable card, waifu tax, all that good stuff. So that's kind of my predictions for these cards moving forward, but hey, definitely curious to see how things pan out in the future. Last card I want to mention for OP05 is Gadatsu. And the reason I'm bringing this one up is because, like I said, I've been looking a lot at the decks that are seeing well in the current OP06 format over in the East. And I've mentioned that NL is still seeing a lot of success over there, and Gadatsu, from what I can tell, has been a 4 of in every NL deck that is seeing success and winning those flagships over there. So only $22 right now could be a good card to pick up, especially if you're looking to play yellow in OP06 and you're someone who likes to bling out your decks with alt arts. Definitely think this could be a good pick up, just given what results I've seen for the OP06 format. A lot of listings right now, so pretty healthy, plenty of listings there, but I would not be at all surprised if this one reaches, I don't know, $30, $35, more in line with Capone, as it is seeing a lot of play and success over there. That's it for OP05 though. Video's getting pretty long, so we've got our promos now. Try and get through these pretty quick and wrap up our video. So for the Dawn cards, for the most part, they're pretty stable with where they've been at. Some of them coming down just a little bit, but in terms of the Dawn cards, no serious changes here. We should be, going into February, we've got the Treasure Cups, and for participation for those, you will be getting the online, or for those ones, is it the online or offline ones you're getting? I can't remember. I want to say it's the Luffy, Sanji, Usopp, Robin, and someone else pack? Brook. The pack with those 5, but I could be wrong about that. It might be the offline pack. I do think it's still the online pack though. So hopefully once those treasure cups start happening, we'll see some dips in price for these cards, so anyone who's looking to pick those up will be able to do so a little more easily. All right, starting things off, we have our pre-release winner, Vivi. This was for the OP03 pre-release, and this card is weirdly expensive right now. Last listing that sold was at $130, and that was today. Only 4 listings left, so it definitely has been bought out. Just given where the collector's market's at for this game, this might not come back down. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't. Great art though. I love this card. I've actually got 2 copies of this card, so may look into selling one now. Maybe we'll even do a giveaway if I'm feeling spicy. We'll see. But yeah, definitely a little surprised by this one, but I guess the collector market is pretty crazy right now, and it is a gorgeous card. Waifu tax, of course. I love the Luffy in the background, but this game is getting a little outrageous in terms of price, especially for these more collectible cards like the winner stamped ones. Store Championship Chopper has gone up in price just a little bit here. Not a lot. It's gone from about $25 to $30. We are getting closer to the release of Starter Deck 11. That is the Film Uta Starter Deck. And so if you're looking to play that deck and bling it out with all your alt darts, this is one you're going to need. So I think as we get closer, this one will start to go up in price a little bit, but there aren't a lot of tournaments following the release of that deck, and I think going to OP06 it more or less falls off. But you know, for the remainder of the OP05 format, once it released, it's a pretty solid deck. So if you're really looking forward to that deck and want to bling it out, this is one you're going to want to need. But if not, could be a good opportunity to sell these cards now as they start to hit a peak in price before they drop back down. Same dealio with the Trafalgar Law. I feel like people kind of forgot that Film Uta was a thing, and now that we got the announcement of the event for the starter deck, people are starting to get a little more excited for it again. And so as you can see here, in the last week we have seen an increase in price on the participation law from the first set of regionals. There are a bunch of variations of this card. You've got the offline participation, online participation, and then your finalist for both offline and online, as well as the winner for both offline and online. Prices, you know, vary, of course, depending on whether it's participation, winner, or whatnot. Not going to go through each one, but for the participation one right now, it's right around $50. The event pack Jimbei is, you know, it's been pretty stable. Very slight increase in price. Could go up a little more if more people get on board with the Warlord stuff, and the hope that, you know, we get some good solid blue Warlord support in set 7. But, you know, we're getting another variation of this card at Nats. There are only 12 listings left though, so I wouldn't be totally surprised if this one sees some sort of buyout, but who's to say, you know. I think this card is honestly probably, you know, he saw his moment. Even if we do get some good Warlord support, I don't know that this card will be good in it. You know, maybe if Doflamingo starts seeing more play again, but I think this effect is a little bit power corrupt at this point, and they're just going to be better options if we get Warlord support. Just because we've been seeing some Impel Down hype and buyouts, I thought I would bring up the regional participation Crocodile card, because it is one of the better cards you can play off of the 7-cost Ivankov effect, just as it is a 7k body, vanilla statline character, also pretty good to play on curve in that deck. Only 5 listings here, so could very easily see a buyout. Someone could just come through, buy these 4 listings, and then bam, we're at a $44 card. Wouldn't be surprised if we see that happen in the next week or so, so just thought I'd bring it up. And then last card for blue is this Gecko Moria here. This is the Store Championship one. Again, with Warlord hype kind of starting to pop up now. This is one that could also see a bigger increase in price. We're already seeing that in the last week it's gone up almost double. You know, it was about $12, and now for a near mint copy we're looking at 20, so pretty significant increase there. Gecko Moria is definitely an incredible card for the Doflamingo deck, so if that deck gets some good Warlord support, this is definitely one that I expect will go up more in price, but we are of course going to have to wait and see what support we end up getting. Another Impel Down card here that could see an increase in price. Another participation card for the regionals. This is the Mino Rhino, Jailer Beast. It's a solid card, vanilla stat line, no counter, solid on KO effect that is going to work with our Impel Down leaders. So we are getting a new one. This is a card that could see play. Quite a few listings for this one. This one is not quite, I mean, only 12 listings, but more than the Crocodile, so not as in range of a buyout status as that one. But, you know, if the Impel Down deck looks to be good, this is definitely one that could go up in price if it sees play in that deck. On to the winter stuff. Nami saw a buyout. It's at $85 right now. Everything else is more or less the same. Your Volume 5 tournament pack winner cards are starting to come down in price. Kaido actually being less than the Luffy right now. Other than that, everything else has been pretty stable, though. With Mihawk, again, we're getting Warlord support. This is a 2K. If there's one that's going to go up in price a lot, it's probably this one. It's a 2K counter for Warlords, and I'd say there's a pretty good chance that the Warlord support we're getting is blue. Just given kind of how they presented the announcement, I think that we're really starting to get support for previous archetypes in, their respective colors. There have been times where like we saw, Wano stuff in yellow, even though previously Wano stuff was all green. But it looks like we're actually trying to support those previous archetypes now. So I do think when we get the Warlord support, it will be blue. And if that is the case, I definitely think this is one that could end up going up even more, because 2K counters are a pivotal part of deck building. And this is a pretty solid 2K counter with the Warlord's typing. On to Judge stuff. No serious changes here, though. Helmeppo is on the rise. Sees a lot of play in black decks in set 6, as it is a very good target to grab off of the 8-cost Gecko Moria SR we'll be getting. This Impel Down Boa, the Judge one's seeing a price increase too. I don't know why. This card isn't good. This makes no sense. I am confused. But other than that, everything else is the same. For our sealed battle stuff, these cards are getting completely out of hand. The leader is over $100 now. Nami's at $100. Luffy's $80. The Rainbow Luffy leader is at $32, and they're selling. Really, they're only selling about $20, but we did have one sell at $40 yesterday. And then your other cards aren't as expensive, but given that these are pretty bad cards, they're very absurdly overpriced, which just sucks to see, because honestly, I'd like to have a playset of this Usopp, so that when we get the green blue Sanji, I can troll with that deck a little bit. It's a 2-cost, so I think it kind of synergizes with that deck a little bit, and I'd like to mess around with it. Not saying it's good, but I'd like to mess around with it. So it sucks that these cards are so expensive. I only bought one of the live action binders because I wanted one for the collection, but I don't really love the way the cards look, so I only bought one. But kind of wish I'd bought more now, because these cards seem like they're going to be impossible to get, which is quite unfortunate. Again, another issue that I hope Bandai resolves in some way, but given how Bandai has handled these issues in the past, they probably won't. And for the last part of our promos, I'm bringing up gift collection again, just because we've got this boa here. This is the Impel Down boa. If we're all going to cope on that card, go ahead and buy this one out too. It's only got 7 listings left. This art's great. Go ahead and buy this one out too if we're being crazy. But other than that, no changes there for the gift stuff. Boa's going up a little bit. Lastly, pre-release stuff. Blah, blah, blah. No serious changes. Virgo's getting pretty expensive. It sees play in set 6. Set 4, no real changes, but this Viola is currently out of stock. And Baby 5 is almost out of stock. And this one was played in one of the Perona decks I saw doing well. I think the one that won was playing 4 copies of this card. So, if that deck continues to see success, this could go up. But honestly, I expect this will probably come back down over time. And then your anniversary cards are still crazy. Nika Robin's actually out of stock right now. They were selling it around $50, which is pretty absurd. But hey, that Robin's a pretty good answer for Rebecca in the current format if you're playing red. Nami's still overpriced as all heck. Other than that, I'd avoid these cards. They're still super inflated and overpriced. Lastly, let's close out the video with our starter decks. I do apologize if this video is quite long. I know you guys say you seem to enjoy them, so I hope that holds true. Did get a couple comments on the last video kind of nitpicking how long the videos were, but I try to go into depth, and I know I can ramble sometimes, but you know, I would like to do pretty in-depth coverage of the current stuff. As I do these more and more, hopefully I'll get a little better at it and speed things up. Though of course I am always very open to criticism. You know, I'm not at all opposed to it. If you've got suggestions on how I could improve these videos in the future, I am more than welcome to the idea. Though if you do have any suggestions, I do just ask that you try and be, you know, polite with your suggestions. No need to be nasty down in the comments below. No one wants to see any of that. But lastly, we've got our starter decks here. I'm just mentioning starter deck 2 and starter deck 3 because, well, this is a Supernova starter deck and this is a Warlord themed starter deck. So with the announcement that we're getting Warlord and Supernova support, these ones could end up going up in price even more. If you're looking to pick up cards from either of these decks, I do think singles is the way to go right now, as the sealed ones are pretty expensive, and really there are only a couple cards from each one that are, you know, expensive. I mean, for this one in particular, just about everything's like $2 or less, so definitely think it's more worth buying the singles for this one. Love Beam's a little expensive, but I still think it's probably more worth buying the singles for this one. So just thought I'd bring those up because we are seeing, you know, that Warlord and Supernova hype right now. All right, starter deck 4, it's $100. Queen is $42. Let's see if that went down. Nope, still $43. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. Let's go check our super pre-release starter deck, okay? The super pre-release Queen is currently $2 less than the starter deck one, the regular one, the one without a stamp. What are you guys doing? Go buy these. They're cheaper right now. You got 2 cheaper listings. If you need your Queens, look, that one's not even verified seller. Look at this. What are you guys doing? If you need Queens, buy your stamped one. Queens are expensive, and like I said, purple kind of falls off completely next set. So really only pick up these Queens if you really want to play Ploofy. Ploofy, I think, is a very solid deck in the current format. Still got some more gameplay videos for that one planned, but had to delay them a little bit because school did start up again this week, back from winter break and all that good stuff. So fortunately wasn't able to get those videos out as soon as I can. But point being, if you need Queens, don't forget that the super pre-release one exists. It's currently cheaper than the regular one, and there is no reason that that should be the case. Then we've got, of course, starter deck 6, which is just probably going to keep going up in price because all the, you know, these cards that are seeing success right now continue to see success in set 6, as well as the addition of the fact that Helmeppo starts to see a lot more play. This one's already been bought out with people kind of investing in this card and looking to resell later, which is unfortunate for the people who actually want to play the game, because now you are probably going to have to pay an inflated price to get some copies of this card as well. And lastly, last thing we're going to mention for starter decks, and the last thing to close out this video, is starter deck 7. Still getting pretty expensive. These cards still see some play going into set 6, so definitely cards you're going to want to have. And currently the starter decks aren't terribly expensive in comparison to some of the other ones, but they're still more expensive than they should be, which is another big problem. These starter decks are a huge problem. Starter decks are meant to be the introductory product that are going to get players into your game, yet the starter decks are, I would argue, more difficult to get than sealed product. And sealed product is impossible to get. For these older starter decks especially, you can't get them, and that's a problem for the game and another issue that Bandai needs to address, but they probably won't, which sucks because like I said, we've got a great community for this game. I've got a great community for my channel. Other channels and creators have great communities as well. I love this game and I love the community, so I really hope that Bandai does something to address these issues. But given current events and announcements, I'm continuing to grow more and more worried. But I don't want to end this video on a sour note, but you know, as always, I appreciate everyone who stuck around to the end. I know these videos are pretty long, but I try to go into as much depth as possible and just provide my insight for both current and future formats. So I apologize if the video is a little long, especially for those who want to, you know, get through this a little more quickly. But hey, maybe this is a good thing to listen to on your way to work or while you're working on some chores or something like that. But anyways, that's all I've got for today. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. If you're enjoying the content, do consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, as it does mean a lot. We are approaching that 2,000 subscriber goal, so hopefully we can hit that pretty soon. It would mean a lot to me, and I hope that I can continue to provide more content for you to all enjoy. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you haven't done so already, consider joining the Discord. We have a good time in there. And if you are looking to pick up any of the cards I mentioned in this video, consider using my TCG Player affiliate link, as a small portion of your purchase will go towards supporting the channel. But with all of that said, thank you all again for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.